What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Bully Ball podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera, pinch hitting for Jason Aponte. And as always, on Tuesday, the wonderful Steph Sanchez. What up, Steph?
What's going on, Rob?
4-0, baby. That's what's going on. 14 straight
There we
wins
go.
in the regular season. It's insane.
And I'm wearing my Run CMC shirt today. Shout out U Stadium, where I got this from. And yeah, got to represent, man. But I'm sure we're going to talk about all the incredible performances of the week, CMC being one of them.
Woo.
But it's awesome because in one game, I think there were so many notable performances from the 49ers, and we'll get to all of them. But yeah, it's just incredible to be a 49ers fan right now. We're having a lot of fun.
This is not normal. I keep saying it. We are in the good old days. This is a golden era of 49ers football right now. It's absurd. Other teams in the league are afraid of the 49ers, and they damn well should be.
Yeah. I mean, they should be. I mean, that's why we call it Brocktober, right? Because it's scary hours for the rest of the league. And Brock's looking great. I know. We'll get to it. But I had the stat I wanted to talk about. First time in franchise history that this team has scored 30 or more points in the first 4 games of the season. I mean, that's incredible. And even dating back to last season and how they ended the regular season, I believe there's only one game that Brock Purdy has started and finished that the 49ers did not score 30 points, right?
That's such an absurd statistic. And the one I keep going back to is that the Niners have done it in 7 straight regular season games. That has not been done in the NFL in the last 10 years. The last team to do it were Peyton Manning's Broncos. Think about that. Mahomes never did it. Aaron Rodgers never did it. Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Tua, whoever, whatever quarterback you want to name, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson in his MVP year. None of them did that. This is a team that's going to score 30 points a game. They're going to put up 500 points on the season, which is something that I think has only been done like 30 times in NFL history, something like that. That's the offense we're looking at right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're rolling on all cylinders. Every single thing is going right for this team right now. And Brock Purdy has been the most efficient quarterback through the first 4 weeks of the season. And I was seeing this thing earlier today. I don't know if you guys follow Computer Cowboy Ben B. Baldwin on Twitter, but every week, he puts out the tiers, the NFL tiers and all these different charts, of all the NFL teams and where they're at. And so in a lot of them, you see the 49ers and Brock Purdy in pretty good position compared to the rest of the NFL right now. And actually, he put a chart earlier today. Offensive series conversion rates compared to teams in the past. This is dating back to 1999. The 49ers right now are number 1 through, of course, just the first 4 weeks of the season, right? So all the other teams, it's the full season that we're looking at. But the 49ers through 4 weeks are number 1, 82.2 series conversion rate. That's I wish I could share the screen. Maybe I can send you the tweet, Rob, so you can put it up. But the last team that has been that high was the Patriots in 2007. Tom Brady, they had 81.4, right? And so it's pretty incredible to look at how efficient and how good this offense has been through the first 4 weeks of the season. I agree. This is like some golden age that I think in some years, we'll look back on these times and really be in awe on what they're doing. So yeah, just enjoy it. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And I hope the rest of you guys are too.
It is phenomenal. It is what we all had been hoping for, right? With so many times with Jimmy Garoppolo, and this is not meant to be a Jimmy Garoppolo slander, but just in that era, we talked about how guys were open, people were missing reads, Kyle was dialing things up, right? Or a pass was inaccurate, whatever the case may be. We all thought this was the kind of offense that they could have, considering the coaching, considering the personnel on the team. And now they're fulfilling that potential. And we were all correct, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a great segue into Brock Purdy, actually, because I feel like the reason that we're seeing like a culmination of everything sort of coming together for this offense is in part largely due to Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, of course, which we'll also talk about today. But like Brock, he's playing some incredible football right now. And I'm not ready to call him an elite quarterback, but he is playing like an elite quarterback through the first 4 weeks of the season, if that makes any sort of sense. Like Rob, you understand the difference between that, right? Like I'm not putting him in like the top 10 of like quarterbacks like
Right.
in the NFL right now, as far as like overall sample size. But if I'm just looking at the first 4 weeks of the season, hell yeah, he's top 10. He might even be top 5 based on what he's doing in these first 4 weeks. And just on Sunday, he had the 4th highest completion percentage in the league, in league history, 95.2, right? With just the one incompletion. And that was the highest in franchise history since Steve Young. And, you know, we talk about Christian McCaffrey and how he's already, with his short time with the team, breaking some like franchise records. Here's Brock Purdy, you know, doing the same thing, right, as the quarterback of the team. So it's pretty incredible. He's in the top 10 in yards on the season, and that's despite being bottom 10 in passing attempts among quarterbacks who have started multiple games this year. And that's because he's being super efficient with his throws, 9.1 yards per attempt. And that's second in the league right now. He has the best passer rating so far this season, 115.1. His completion percentage, 72.3%, is top 3 behind just Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And the best thing about it all, I think, is that Kyle Shanahan loves this kid, man. Like all the jokes that we make about, you know, Shanahan loving Kirk Cousins and all this, it's just a joke, right? But at this point, Kirk is like a complete afterthought for Kyle Shanahan. He loves Brock Purdy, and he went for it on 4th down again and dialed up. What a pass for his quarterback, because he trusts this guy, and I think they see the game the same way. And so it's not just everything clicking on offense, it's Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan clicking on offense, because they're, I think, on the same page. And earlier this week, I know it was brought up, I forget where, but Brock, I think it was in the presser last week, Brock was mentioning that him and Kyle kind of look at what the game plan is going to be, and Kyle kind of asks him, okay, like, what are you comfortable with doing? And if I know anything about Brock Purdy, I don't think he said this in the presser, but if I know anything about Brock, he's like, yeah, like I could do that. Like he's probably comfortable with like just about anything you could throw at him, or at least he's going to try, right? And so I think we're seeing Brock take his game to a new level each and every week. I mean, what did we see just a couple weeks ago with Brock? It was him, you know, overthrowing guys, missing guys deep. And what did we see? You know, last week he had that touchdown throw to Debo that was like 30-something air yards, something like that. And then this week he has a couple to Brandon Ayuk, right, downfield. And those were pretty much on the money. So, and credit Ayuk too on those, because those were great catches. But I think it's just, everything is just working so well through these first 4 weeks, and they're just scratching the surface, Rob. Like they're just getting started. Brock Purdy is still learning every single game, and he's getting better every single week. Brandon Ayuk is getting better every single week too. Christian McCaffrey seems like he's getting better every single week, if that's even possible. And yeah, it's just everything is coming together at the right time. And what better time than all of it to come together than right before Cowboys week, man?
Oh, it's going to be so great. I keep pointing this out because it blows my mind. Ray McCloud had 2 catches on Sunday. That's more touches than George Kittle and Debo Samuel. Or I shouldn't say that, actually. It's not more touches. It's more catches. Yeah. Debo had 3 carries and Kittle had 1 catch. So that Kittle had 4 touches. Ray McCloud had 2, and yet it didn't matter in the game. They scored 30 points still. Like, it's just incredible to think about right now. I want to make another point on Brock, but first, Stefan says, how can I become a member of the show? Shout out to all our YouTube channel members. We love you. We're so grateful for your support. If you want to become a member of the show, just go to the show on YouTube. Search Gold Standard Network on YouTube. You click it, and there'll be a little join button. All you got to do is hit that join button, and you can become a member. It's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, membership badges, priority comment response. I got to drop a couple new emojis in there, Steph. I'm going to make a little Christian McCaffrey one of him jumping, hurdling the defender. I got to make a new one of there, so I got to throw a couple in there. If you want to become a member of Steph's channel, Steph, do you have members yet or no?
Not yet. Not yet.
All right. Well, then you need to like and subscribe to the 49K YouTube channel right now. You have the Brandon Ayuk film breakdown, I believe, up there at the moment,
It's
right?
not a film breakdown, but it is all 22, all three
That's what I mean.
angles of his 6 catches. So I'm not doing any talking in them. So if you hate my voice, great. A perfect video for you. But yeah, every week I post all 22 of one player. This week it was Brandon Ayuk because he had a great day.
Did you see that PFF gave Brock a turnover-worthy play for his one incompletion this past week?
How is that a turnover-worthy play though?
Have
Like
no idea.
And I actually give credit to Brock for the incompletion because he almost got sacked on that one. He was just getting the ball out. He didn't take the sack. You live to see another down. At least you give your guy a chance at the ball, Christian McCaffrey. I didn't see a defender that close to the ball on that one.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
crazy.
kinda weird.
Marty also points out if you want to become a YouTube channel member, you got to do it on the actual website. You can't do it on the app. I don't know why. That's really annoying, but you got to go to the actual website. So please, if you're going to do that, that's how you get that done. The other thing with Brock too is, as this is something that Vish and I were talking about yesterday, like he's had no off season. He's been rehabbing
Yeah.
all off season. He comes back in time for training camp. He's still ramping up. He hasn't had a normal off season. And what do we talk about with like Javon Kinlaw and Trey Lance, right? How if you're rehabbing injuries in the off season, it really stunts your development. And like here we are with Brock, and it's just like I've described the 49ers as a football winning machine, and that's what it feels like because he just picked up right where he left off last year. Like that, you would never know that he had a career-threatening injury.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that Kyle Shanahan mentioned this week is that, Brock has always been good at the things that we're seeing him be good at now. And so he says even last year he was good at these things. But I do feel like despite that, like he is getting better. Like we can see it. He's passing the eye test. Any sort of test that you try to give Brock, he's passing it, right? So yeah, I mean, it is pretty incredible. I think the biggest thing for me is like the chemistry that he has with Ayuk, right? In a pretty short amount of time, training camp and on is when he really got a chance to start throwing and building that chemistry a little bit more with Ayuk, in particular downfield. I mean, he's thrown to Ayuk at the end of the last season. It's not like Ayuk is new to the team, but these deep throws and things like that, the timing, the anticipation. There's a lot of anticipation throws from Brock. And I think that's another thing that's kind of setting him apart from him last year. He's a little bit better at that. In fact, I saw, and this kind of made me sad, I saw that Brock kind of, in a way, blames himself for the injury he took to his elbow, Hassan Reddick hitting him on the elbow, because he cites that he had Brandon Ayuk coming open and his back was still turned, but he decided to not throw the ball because he was waiting for him to turn. And so in him waiting, that's when Hassan Reddick hit his arm. But that's the NFL, right? Like that's football. Plays and the game happens in seconds, milliseconds. And so a decision of not making that decision in a millisecond, kind of changed that play, that game, etc. But now we're seeing the timing be there for him. We're seeing him get the ball out very quickly. And I don't know if I mentioned the time to throw for Brock, but he's up there in the time to throw. I think he's like 4th or something like that, or 3rd or 4th, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me, someone, if I am wrong. But yeah, he's getting the ball out quick, and he's also throwing the ball further, so that's what I'm saying. He's being very efficient with the football. So yeah, credit to him for working on the little things that, as I've been saying, they're the big things for Brock in this offense.
the best thing, everything, all the great things Brock does to me, almost all are from the neck up. And to me,
Mhm.
this is the first time in the Shanahan 49ers era that they have had a quarterback where you could say that about. Like, Brock is a smarter quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. It is clear. Like,
Yeah.
I can count on one hand the amount of times where Brock gets fooled by the defense. Jimmy Garoppolo's throwing interceptions over the middle of the damn robber like once a game. It's once a game. And this is years into his career. Brock's not doing that. Brock is he's a smarter quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's probably the smartest quarterback the 49ers have had, and it's paying off big time for them this year. It is transforming this offense along with Christian McCaffrey and the breakout season of Brandon Ayuk, which, by the way, can we talk about that a little bit? Can we talk about what Brandon Ayuk is doing?
Yeah.
Because he's incredible right now. He's playing at a top 5 wide receiver level. I keep saying it because it
Yeah.
blows my
He is.
mind. 3 games this year, he set his career high twice. Like, that's the level that he has ascended to.
Yeah, and I think what was impressive to me is that, I mean, a lot of what he was doing on Sunday is things he's been doing. Like, he gets open, he can beat any man on the field. I think that's how highly I think of Ayuk. It's just a matter of like, okay, is the quarterback going to get the ball to him? And now we're seeing that his average depth of target was 21.3 on Sunday. That's the highest of his career. And that was on 6 catches, right? So yes, it was 6 catches, but to get 148 yards, as you mentioned, that's a career high for Ayuk. It was a very efficient day for him as well. And man, do they have to check his gloves for some stickum, because he was hanging on to those. He still has no drops on the season. His targeted air yards this season is 8th highest among pass catchers, all pass catchers, including tight ends, with 15.9. And through week 4, he has 12 explosive receptions. That's 5th most in the NFL. And that's on 17 total receptions, mind you. So yeah, more than half of his receptions have been explosive. And 93.6 PFF grade, that is first. And as I mentioned, the 0 drops. So he's definitely up there with the best of them right now, and I'm excited for him because he deserves this. I think he's been working at this for a long time. He came
Yes.
straight from the doghouse, and look at him now, right? So I'm happy for him and proud of him for doing what he's doing. I've always seen the potential. I think Kyle always saw the potential of him being like this top 10 receiver. He always had the attributes to do it. It was just a matter of it all coming together, and it's really all coming together this season. And so, man, the 49ers are going to have to pay up after this season if he can keep this up throughout the season, which I do expect he will, especially with how he's like seems to be clicking with Brock Purdy, and those two have trust with each other, right? So I think he's going to get a bag after this year, and he certainly deserves it.
Ben Richards watching on Twitch. My Twitch page is at Stats on Fire if you want to follow me there. Brandon Ayuk has been great, but top 5, his yards after catch is terrible. 45 yards after catch on 17 catches for less than 3 yards average. Look at the air yards that he's catching, though. Like, if you
And is Yak the only like thing that we judge 49ers receivers on? Brandon Ayuk is a slightly different receiver than Deebo Samuel. Ayuk is more or less more of like a possession receiver. Um, so why are we just paying attention to Yak? I mean, look at everything else. Like you're about to say, Rob.
yeah, I just like yak is great if you're catching a 3-yard pass. You want to have a lot of yak. But if you're catching a ball 18 yards down the field, you're not generally going to have a lot of yak. Like it, I just feel like there's context there that I think people need to look at. And Ayuk is kind of like a microcosm for this offense, like I was talking about earlier. We always thought that they could reach this level of production. It's the same thing with Ayuk. Everybody thought he had the talent, but because of the scheme, because of the quarterback play, we couldn't unlock him before. Well, he is unlocked right now, and it is absolutely fantastic to see. He's incredible. The only thing he hasn't done is score touchdowns, which I think that'll come. But I also think he gets so much attention when they get close to the goal line because of what he did last year that they just give it to freaking Christian McCaffrey, and he's a touchdown scoring machine.
Yeah, McCaffrey's like automatic in the red zone. So I mean, I'm going to take that 10 times out of 10 as well. But the touchdowns will come for Ayuk because, as I mentioned, he's been so good. one-on-one matchups. He can beat anyone. The red zone is really where you want to capitalize on things like that. But yeah, as of right now, we haven't really seen it. Maybe we see it this week. Who knows?
Shout out to Stefano, new YouTube channel member. Appreciate that. I dropped the link if you want to become a YouTube channel member in the chat. So feel free to click there. You'll see the join button, and you can do that very quickly. And we, again, we do appreciate it. I just like, it's so weird to just have nothing but flowers for everybody, for every freaking body. I want to get to this comment, and we can ping pong back and forth, but this person's been waiting. Kansas has been waiting. How does this offensive line hold up against the Cowboys, Steph? Kittle will have his hands full, which means he won't be as big of a threat in the passing game. Niners offensive line looked good last week. Cardinals generally were able to get pressure even without blitzing so far this year. They had one sack, I think, on the day. So the Niners offensive line did a good job, but it's a different beast this week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's reason to be concerned, right? Because I kind of figured the game against Arizona was going to be a get-right game for the offensive line, in particular the right side of the line. They're really the ones that have been struggling through the previous 3 weeks. But just because they have one good game doesn't necessarily mean they'll have another against the Cowboys. Of course, like we really need them to, right? Because the Cowboys defensive line is pretty good. They have this guy named Micah Parsons. I don't know if you heard about him, Rob, but he's pretty good. And he's going to give the line trouble, and he can line up. He mostly lines up over the left tackle, but they can put him anywhere, really. And if they identify a weak side of the line, which would be the right side, they're going to line them up there. So I'm a little worried about this matchup, but I do think that they'll probably send some help. Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle. I don't think it bothers me if George Kittle is going to have his hands full and maybe not as involved in the game plan for that reason. Just because I think through these first 3 weeks, we've seen other guys like boom when other players have busted. I'm using like a fantasy football terms to describe that, but what I mean is like other guys like Debo, who wasn't really involved last week. You have Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey who can blow up. The week before that, it was Debo, right? When Ayuk was out, Debo had a crazy game. So it's really like at this point, the 49ers are kind of using all of their weapons, but not at the same time. Like they can kind of interchange who has a big game against anyone and who they want to target the most and involve in the game plan. So yeah, I am concerned about the offensive line. What's going to be key for Brock Purdy, and he's been doing this already, so I think he'll continue, is his time to throw. He's been keeping that pretty low, and I would expect that he does. The Cowboys defense is a little bit better. Their secondary is better than some of the ones we have faced as well. I know Diggs is no longer out there, so that could help. But I think what we want to avoid is just like those coverage sacks, or I guess like coverage pressure, you can even say. We might see some of that in this game if, Cowboys do a good job of defending, the back end. But I am worried.
One of the things I think is kind of like a hidden benefit is last week, the Niners were preparing to play the Cardinals, right? So they're looking at film of the Cardinals. Well, who did the Cardinals play? They played the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So it was almost like double preparation, kind of like a weird thing. I know Kyle was asked about it and he said, no, he doesn't do that. But like, you can't help but absorb some of what you see. I'm sure Kyle saw how the Cardinals perforated that Cowboys defense for over 200 rushing yards. I'm sure he saw it. And so I'm hoping that, they can copy some of those things that Arizona did, and that will help them kind of slow down this Cowboys pass rush.
Yeah, he absolutely watched that game. And even just watching it on the broadcast, you're going to pick up on some things, especially if you're Kyle Shanahan, right? So, and because it was in that mini bye that they had, all he could do was watch football on Sunday, and it was awesome, right? So I'm sure he tuned into that game knowing that those were the team's next two opponents and picked up a few things.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Brock has a better performance against the Cowboys, because they were like the one team that kind of slowed him down last year. So I'm interested to see that. Dan Quinn seems to, in general, have a pretty good beat on what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. So there is so much to watch in this matchup. And I also think there's a little Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb type of stuff going on. I mean, we talk about that wide receiver class. I think, Justin Jefferson is clearly the best in the class, but at number 2, I think a lot of people would have said CeeDee Lamb going into this year, probably everybody. But with what Brandon Ayuk is doing, you might be battling a little bit for that title.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely up there. It wouldn't surprise me if Ayuk kind of has that chip on his shoulder, right? Of knowing like these are the guys I'm constantly being compared to. I
Yep.
feel like I'm in that echelon. I feel like I'm better than them. It's a great time to prove it, right? When you're on the same field as, one of those guys. So yeah, it could be a big Brandon Ayuk game. But to your point of, Dan Quinn kind of knowing what Kyle Shanahan likes to do, he absolutely does. And I think that's the worry. I almost feel like, I don't know if you felt the same, Rob, but through these first 4 weeks, I've kind of felt like the 49ers have been playing this somewhat vanilla offense. I feel like we haven't seen motion. I mean, we are still seeing a lot of motion, but like, for example, the game against the Cardinals, I remember Brock saying like, yeah, we kept things pretty simple this week. And I don't know, that struck me as interesting because I'm like, maybe Kyle's saving some things for this Cowboys matchup and didn't want to show too much. I mean, it's still pretty early in the season, and the 49ers haven't really been in like these extra close games that they would have to, dive deep into the playbook. So maybe there's some things that Kyle's holding close to the vest that he's gonna put out there this week. I don't know.
That's interesting. Brock made it a point to say in the press conference Sunday, multiple times he said this. Everybody was buttoned up. Everybody was detail oriented. And it almost made me wonder if maybe for the past couple of weeks there have been one person perhaps that wasn't totally buttoned up, just the fact that he repeated it. And maybe he was, I don't know who he's talking about, but that jumped out to me. And look, if that's the case, I mean, literally one freaking incompletion on Sunday. It's just absurd. I've never done that in Madden. Like, somebody needs to up the difficulty for Brock Purdy. Apparently, it's too easy for him. It's just an absolutely wild situation what the 49ers are doing on offense. All right. How have we gone 27 minutes and not talked about
I know, right? Like, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Already talked about the Cowboys, and here we are, Christian McCaffrey, lowest hanging fruit there could possibly be.
I have to take a massive, massive, massive L on this one. And by the way, if you haven't liked the stream yet, please, please, please go ahead and do that. Like and subscribe to the Gold Standard YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to Steph's YouTube channel, 49K. When they made the trade for McCaffrey and I saw the compensation and I said, wait, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5 next year for Christian McCaffrey, a running back? I think that's a little too much. I had no idea how he was going to completely transform this offense. He's the MVP right now. Through a quarter of the season, Christian McCaffrey is the most valuable player in the National Football League.
He is, yeah. And it seems crazy to say because Christian McCaffrey is so good. I feel like we can say these kind of things about him literally every single week. And I don't want to say it gets tiring because it really doesn't. I love Christian McCaffrey. I love having him on the 49ers. And I'm disappointed in you, Rob, that you're like ESPN. You gave this trade a C-, didn't you?
I didn't give it I thought it was a lot to give up. I wasn't worried about McCaffrey as a player. I was worried about his health more than anything else.
I think we all were. I think we all still are hesitant on that. I know a lot of people mention the volume that he's getting right now, and it's a reason for worry. Is this sustainable? Fair questions. But you know what Christian McCaffrey is doing right now is the exact reason why you traded for him in the first place. And the volume, if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm calling plays, hell, I'm calling them for Christian McCaffrey too. Because if you can guarantee yourself 5 yards every time he touches the ball, wouldn't you do that? Don't you do things like that? Like when you're in Madden, I know the NFL and is not the same thing. Real life is not the same as Madden. But I'm just saying, like, get in the mind of like a play caller. You have a play that's going to guarantee you, and yes, it does guarantee you 5 yards every time Christian McCaffrey pretty much touches the ball. He averaged, I think, 5.6 yards per carry on Sunday. If you have that, you're going to use it every single time, because if you don't, I mean, that's the advantage to the other team, right? Because you have a weapon who's so good. He's 459 rushing yards. It leads the league right now. His 6 touchdowns lead the league. 6 rushing touchdowns, and then he has 7 total touchdowns, 22 forced missed tackles, 34 first downs so far this season. And I saw something that was interesting. He's now accounted for 99 first downs for the team since he's joined the 49ers. That's impressive.
That's the most in the NFL in that span.
Yes. I think Josh Jacobs was the previous owner of that, but now it's Christian McCaffrey. And so you look at everything he's done for this team in just the short amount of time that he's been here. And man, yeah, I mean, you can't really argue that it was absolutely worth it. And I know, running backs, the value of them is not quite what it used to be, but Christian McCaffrey is up there with the best of them in, maybe league history.
Christian McCaffrey had 15 first downs himself on Sunday. 15. Every time you give him the ball, it's like a friggin' first down. He has 23 rushing first downs on this season.
Take that every time.
It's got to be so tempting for Kyle to just say, all right, we need a first down. Just take it. Just do it. We'll get a first down. I mean, you mentioned the rushing yards. He's got almost 100 more rushing yards than anybody else in the league. And DeAndre Swift has been killing it for the Eagles. DeAndre Swift is averaging 6 yards a carry. And Christian McCaffrey, now, to be fair, Christian McCaffrey has a lot more attempts than DeAndre Swift, but he is producing at just the output is unbelievable for the 49ers. And I mean, put him in bubble wrap during the week. Where I get that. We all want him to stay healthy, but Steph, he's on pace to have the most scrimmage yards in a single season that anybody's ever had. Now he's going to play an extra game, but that would even top the Chris Johnson record from years ago when he ran for 2,500 yards that year, whatever it was. Not 25, that would be the record, but my point. He's putting up more yards than anybody's ever put up from scrimmage in a single season right now. It's absurd to watch.
It's been nearly a full year since the 49ers have had Christian McCaffrey. He was traded on October 20th of last year. It seems like it was later in the season. I don't know why. But in that span, or since he's been with the team, 20 total touchdowns in 18 games, 13 straight games with a touchdown. That's the franchise record. And it's getting up there with NFL record, right? The total is pretty high. It's 17 straight games with a touchdown. If he scores a touchdown against the Cowboys on Sunday, he would tie Emmitt Smith for 14 straight games with a touchdown. How great would that be against the Cowboys to do that, right? So he's well on his way to making more history. And in the short span that he's been with the team, I guess now at this point, almost a full season, it probably has been about 16, 18 games at this point. I mean, he's so there you go. Yeah, so there you go. He's done incredible things, and he's already passing franchise records and taking over Jerry Rice records. Come on, you got to be a gamer to do that. And no, not gamer, but that sounds like he's just a guy who's good at football. No, he's everything for this team. He's doing it all. And man, is it too early to extend this guy? Could he be a Niner for the rest of his life?
I mean, at this point, I don't see how he isn't. 18 games since joining the 49ers, I have on the screen if you're listening. 21 touchdowns in 18 games and more than 2,200 all-purpose yards for Christian McCaffrey. And don't forget, he didn't know the system last year. Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Juszczyk and Brock Purdy, too, were telling him what to do in the huddle for some of it. Think of how absurd that is. How good of a just raw football player you have to be for them to be essentially drawing it up in the huddle. Hey, just run here, run through this gap, do that. And you're going out there and dominating at the highest level of football. It's an absurd situation now. And Kyle even said yesterday, McCaffrey's getting better because he knows the system now. He doesn't have that learning curve. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he knows what everybody else is supposed to do, which helps Christian do his job even better. So it's absurd to think that the best may be yet to come.
We were just talking about how smart Brock Purdy is and how that kind of helps elevate his game. I feel like Christian McCaffrey is smart too. He's one of the smarter like running backs, and he also has a crazy work ethic. So yeah, I do think he's going to continue to get better in this offense. And this offense, quite honestly, fits him like a glove. I mean, he and what Kyle Shanahan is able to do for him, like in terms of the blocking, but also, uh, putting his best attributes on display and letting him cook that way. I mean, oh, man, how is this guy on this team? It's unreal. It is unreal. And I'm still saying this. It's been a year almost, and I'm still in disbelief that he's on this team. It just feels way too good to be true. I can't believe it.
I'll take it. I'll take all.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
no
And,
complaints.
we've seen now that the 49ers are willing to make trades in season. The Christian McCaffrey trade, obviously, like they pinpoint a need and they go after it. Emmanuel Sanders was desperately needed when they traded for him in 2019, and he
Yeah.
really helped Debo and Ayuk. To this day, they still talk about how Emmanuel Sanders has helped them. And I just can't help but wonder, Steph, $41 million in cap space right now. There are issues at right tackle, and God help us, are there issues in the secondary. Ambry Thomas couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. I'm sorry. He's not it. He is not it. There is a need at corner. Do you think the Niners make a move?
Yeah, I mean, they very well could, right? And we're getting to that point where it's like getting close to the trade deadline where you're kind of wondering if they will. I don't know if it'll be corner though. I don't know what it would be. I guess like that would be the better question. Is there one position that is so like clearly a need and a weakness at this point that you can justify, bringing someone in and saying like this is the guy who's going to start over, X player and he's going to change our season. I don't know. I know Ambry Thomas, that experiment does need to end. I kind of feel like, Steve Wilkes not having as much experience, with this personnel, with this team, right? I don't think he really knows how far the Ambry Thomas disappointment goes, and it does stretch back further than just this year. Like he probably thinks like, yeah, like Ambry Thomas had like a lapse in like preparation for the season last year, and so that's all it was. He's going to be way better this year. And he looked better in camp. So like I feel like that's all Steve Wilkes knows and has seen. So I think he still believes in Ambry Thomas, and as probably proven by him still being out there and rotating with Isaiah Oliver. But it needs to end. I think we've seen enough at this point that we know he's just not it. And man, I'm okay with Isaiah Oliver at nickel. Maybe it's not as good as we thought it would be when Steve Wilkes called him the best nickel available in free agency. But he hasn't been terrible in these last few games either. Who has been terrible is kind of, Ambry Thomas. So at least that's what I think. When I'm looking at the broadcast, and I need to watch all 22 on the defense, but when I'm looking at the broadcast and I'm seeing the team score a touchdown on a 99-yard drive, and the touchdown, whoever scores a touchdown is standing next to Ambry Thomas, like that's suspicious to me. I'm just like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So Ambry Thomas, he's fine for a backup, but like I don't. Okay, Rob, you don't even want him as a backup, but like, okay, tell me this: if you're gonna trade for a corner, you're trading to start him. Who are you starting him over? Any corner that you?
Well, to me, your nickel is a starter because you're in nickel so often.
Yeah.
I just like that situation last week. Ambry Thomas bites on a double move. There's 30 seconds left in the half, Ambry. Like, what are you doing biting on a double? Who cares if they complete it short? You're guarding the end zone. And yet he gets whooped. Like, no situational awareness. Like, even if you can't cover, like, you shouldn't get beat on that type of move in that situation. It's just incredibly frustrating. And it's just frustrating because, like, how many times do we hear oh, first down by this team. It's only his second reception all year. It's like, yeah, because normally that guy can't get open. But when Ambry Thomas guards him, he's friggin' Jerry Rice out there.
Well, Michael Wilson, who was the Cardinals rookie who made that touchdown, and he had a pretty good day. He's pretty good. I did like Michael Wilson coming out of the draft. But anyway, Ambry Thomas, yeah, I don't like the experiment. It needs to end. Sure, as a backup, but if any of these corners do get hurt, the 49ers are in trouble, man. They're in trouble. And what's interesting to me is that like through these first few games, like it kind of seems like the defense is maybe not like what it used to be before. Currently I attribute that to it, Steve Wilkes. I think he's still getting used to this personnel. I still think they've been good. I don't want to make it seem like they're not good, but I think the offense has just like taken a whole new look, whole nother level, that it kind of seems like the offense, and I don't want to say carrying because I know a lot of people are using the term, the offense is now carrying the defense. I think the defense used to carry the offense at many times last year and prior years. But I don't think the offense is necessarily carrying the defense. The defense is still playing well. But I would just say like maybe they're just a little more balanced than they used to be. And the defense is not as dominant at it as it was before. What do you think, Rob?
I think I agree. I think that, and look, this is just pure speculation on my part, but like when you see Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans down on the sideline, I mean, the one word I think that fits both of them is intensity, right? How many times did we see the reaction shot of the 49ers defensive coordinator after a good play? And they were just, right? Steve Wilkes is a different guy. He has a different personality. He's up in the booth. He likes to be removed from that emotion. He likes to take a more kind of cerebral approach and a more objective approach to things. And I feel like that intensity is missed on the field at times by the 49ers. I think there were times where D'Amico and Saleh were just like, F it, let's blitz. Like Steve Wilkes to me just doesn't see, he's more content to play softer coverage. And maybe that's because the Niners have a lead so often. So he feels like he doesn't have to make a play. That could be it too. But it does feel like there is a difference in the defense this year, which is frustrating to say from their perspective, I would imagine, because the most points they've given up in a game so far this year is 23. So we do.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're not bad. That's why I'm like, to say that the offense is carrying the defense is kind of disrespectful. They're not doing that. Carrying kind of makes it seem like the defense isn't doing anything and like the offense has to make up for what the defense is not doing. I don't think that's the case. Like the defense is still playing well. It's just not at the level that we have been accustomed to seeing the last few years. And that's okay. Like at some point, the defense is not going to be perfect, right? It's not always going to be perfect. I do think that Steve Wilkes will get more comfortable with this defense and more used to like this personnel and how they do things and everything like that. He's going to stop trotting out Isaiah Oliver out there. Like he's still like experimenting here and there with this defense and trying to like add new wrinkles, see what works, see what doesn't. Whereas in the past, like, D'Amico didn't really do that. He always was familiar with this personnel, and that was the benefit of him coming up with the team, being under Robert Saleh already, yep. And he hit the ground running. Steve Wilkes is a little bit different, so I think he's still getting used to it, still getting in his groove as a defensive play caller, and I think that's going to come with some time. And the defense in the meantime is still playing some good football. So, credit to them. This is a pretty good test for the team on Sunday. I know we don't respect the Cowboys all that much. I don't have a ton of respect for Dak Prescott, but I will say this because I was just looking up some things in prep for the show. Dak's completion percentage right now is fourth best in the league. He's at 71.3, just behind Brock Purdy. And right now he's getting the ball out super quick, 2.49 time to throw. That's fourth in the NFL. He's throwing 6.7 yards per attempt and just one interception so far this season. So they're kind of putting him in the Jimmy Garoppolo like offense where they're letting him operate within a small structure, and it's working to keep him from disaster. And he's getting the ball out quick, right? So in the past, when the 49ers have played against Dak, He's always tried to do too much. And that's kind of how the 49ers defense can just let the game come to them, because if you just pressure him, he'll just fold eventually. So that's how I feel about Dak. But the way that they're using him right now and kind of, I guess, like limiting his exposure to disaster or his own like disaster, I think they're protecting him from himself. And so I think in that case, it could be somewhat of a challenge for the 49ers, because you're going to see them, I think, get these dink and dunk like completions on the team. And so they're going to move the ball like slowly, but they're still going to move it.
Yeah.
And so that might make us a little uncomfortable at first. And it's going to be like, why isn't the defensive line getting home? They're not getting any sacks. But look, I think in this game, I don't know what you would do,
voice?
Rob.
What was that voice?
I don't know. Just people whining. So I don't know how you would defend that, but I would, if I'm the 49ers, stay with the 4 defensive linemen to get pressure and drop more into coverage, because if there's less guys open, maybe he'll have to hold on to the ball just a little bit more, and that'll help the rush get home. But I don't know.
Technic Chic says, I feel like every team has been trying to do the quick game against the 49ers to avoid sacks. That's true. I think at this point last year, they had something like, or Bosa had like 7 sacks at this point last year. He obviously only has 1. Javon Hargrave is there. I saw this from Dak, and I said this last year. And to me, it was proven last year. You could see it. You could see him on the sideline. This 49ers team has become a thing for Dak Prescott, in Dak Prescott's head. Like, we can't beat the 49ers. Oh, my God, there's so much pressure. Remember last year going into the game, he was like, we want the 49ers. Like, it's a thing in his head. Did you see this from the post? I think this was from the post game last week. I'm going to try and throw this up on the stream. Somebody asked Dak, like, what was the feeling like in that stadium last year? Hopefully this works.
Last January against those guys.
I mean, it's obvious. I mean, we're so far past that, to be honest with you, but that's obvious. I mean, you just want to piss me off going into this week, and I appreciate that. I do, actually. I do. Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Lost drive, you guys.
I mean, every day. Every day, Ty, every day.
This man is so unserious. I can't take him seriously. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I think it is in his head, like at this point, and it's kind of like, remember when the Seahawks were dominant over the 49ers and they won all those games? It was kind of like the same thing, like where you feel like you just can't get out of it. You're just like in this hole against this team. And even before the game starts, like you feel like you're in this hole you can't get out of. I kind of feel like the Cowboys have that same sort of feeling with the 49ers, that they're kind of just in this like quicksand and it's in their heads, and they're the ones who, what's funny, like I think Dak or another player on the Cowboys said something like, this game means more to them, the Cowboys, because of how they lost last year. And so I think in their minds are like, we're more motivated, like this will mean more to us. That doesn't mean you're going to win. I mean, you still got to go out there and execute. And look, I'm not saying that this isn't going to be a challenge, because I think it will. The Cowboys are a good team. They had a lapse in, I don't know what it was. It was a trap game for them, how they've, fell to the Cardinals. Cardinals are also a pretty good team if you're not careful, right? So, I think they are going to, give the 49ers their best shot, and may the best team win in week 5. So we'll see. I
think they are in Dak's head. I think it's a thing like you talked about. If the Niners get up by a couple points, especially if Dak has an early turnover, I feel like he's going to be on the sideline like, oh my God, here we go again. I feel like and then he's going to start to press and he's going to start to force things. And I think, like you said, quicksand is the perfect word. I think it could really snowball on Dak Prescott if the game goes a certain way. And I know that he's getting the ball out of his hands. I have no faith in this Mike McCarthy offense. I'm not a McCarthy fan. I've never been a McCarthy fan. I think McCarthy's part of the reason this team didn't draft Alex Smith in 2005, because don't forget, McCarthy was on the staff that year with Mike Nolan. And oh, by the way, we end up with Alex Smith, and one of the greatest quarterbacks ever goes to Green Bay. I'm not a McCarthy fan until the Cowboys prove it I will never believe in them. I think they've earned that. They haven't been to an NFC Championship game since 1995. Since I was 10 years old, they haven't been to an NFC Championship game, Steph. It's going to be intense. I'm super pumped to be going to Levi's. I think that building is going to
we're
be
both going to be there.
It's going to be insane. We have to meet up, by the way. We need to be in the same
absolutely will.
state so I can shake your hand because
hopefully the service at Levi's holds up, because as techie as Santa Clara is, the service at Levi's is not great. The Wi-Fi is not great.
Oh boy.
Fix it, Jed. Fix it. But anyway, I just want to mention this. Like, I know it's early in the season, but it's never too early to start thinking about playoff seeding implications. And this game is huge in that aspect. 49ers and Eagles, 2 NFC teams, are the only undefeated teams right now. Cowboys would like to get on even footing with, the 49ers and hope at some point, the Eagles drop one too. So for the Cowboys, it's huge. For the 49ers, it's huge too, because you've gotten to this hot start and you don't want to lose any of the ground that you've gained on some of these other teams. The Seahawks are 3-1 right now. You don't want to get on even footing with them. I mean, their first game, they looked terrible, but they've looked good since then. And, I think their defense is improving. So I think it all speaks to the importance of what the 49ers have been able to do so far through these first few games, but you have to keep it up. So this game is huge in, eventual seeding implications later on in the season.
1,000%. Even though it feels like the Niners are the best team in the league by far, record wise, there's not much separation. So, because the wins all count the same, whether you win by 1 or whether you're whooping teams like the Niners. But you're right, the implications. This win would give San Francisco, if they get it, 4 wins in the NFC. You'd have 2 wins in the NFC West. You'd have a win over one of your biggest competitors for the top seed in the NFC. It's massive for San Francisco. It absolutely is. Just like that Eagles game is going to be later in the year. So, this is weeks and weeks and weeks from now. We'll go back and say, oh, so-and-so has the tiebreaker because of this game on Sunday. And so I think the 49ers are aware of that. I know the Cowboys obviously are going to be pumped up going into this one, but I think the Niners are going to be just as pumped up. This is going to be a playoff game in October.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible atmosphere. I really cannot wait. If you guys are going to the game too, don't get in any fights, man. I'm tired of seeing these damn videos. All right, and just have a great time. I'm going to be vibing, and it's going to be fun. So much fun. Go Niners, man. I'm excited.
Hell yeah, everybody. Levin is going to do the instant reaction show after the game by himself. I'm a little nervous about that, not going to lie, but we will still have an instant reaction show after the game. That's why you need to like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell so you know right when we go live. We go live every single day here on the channel, just about. Steph, I know you go live multiple times a day on your channel. Hit the bell on the 49K YouTube channel as well, everybody. Thank you for the support. We have tied our biggest month ever for the Gold Standard podcast last month in September. Tied for the most downloads we've ever had in a month, which is unbelievable.
Look at us putting up 49ers numbers.
That's right. We're the Christian McCaffrey of 49ers podcast, baby. We're unleashed. So please, thank you for all the support. And just enjoy this. Enjoy it. And this is going to be so much fun this weekend. Steph, thank you so much for letting me pinch hit on your show.
Thank Jason, man.
Thanks, Jason, for needing a day off. Anyway, enjoy it, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.